Hi, Stephen. Welcome to the FINITE Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting for you to be here all the way from New York. Um, we're talking today about making B2B marketing more objective. Uh, there's so much to unpack there. The subjectivity of marketing as it stands, why we might need to lean on objectivity more, how we can shift marketing as a view of marketing as a driver of growth. Lots to talk about. But before we do that, as we always do, I will let you give us a little bit more information about who you are, your career so far, and what you're up to at the moment.
Sure, no, absolutely. I'm happy to share that with you and the Finite community. I know it's a community of B2B tech and SaaS marketers and players within the space. So I'll draw a little bit of connection to what I do now. Steve Stano, right? I've been with Morgan Stanley for 10 years now, holding a variety of roles. But the one that I'm in now is leading off on Morgan Stanley at Works, workplace financial solutions from a B2B equity marketing perspective. So the tie to the finite community here is where it's very much focused on SaaS and tech partners. The platforms that I market are very much a SaaS platform focusing on equity compensation. So it's coming at it from that lens of how do we market SaaS to our corporate clients. Now, I've been with Morgan Stanley for 10 years now. It's been an amazing 10 years, but my career has always been within the financial services space.
Nice. And what about your current role? Are you leading a team? What does that look like? What does the team structure look like at Morgan
Sure.
Stanley with you?
No, absolutely. And I will say leading a team and giving back and paying dividends forward from those that I've learned throughout my journey is actually one of the things that brings me the most joy in the work that I do. So to answer your question around, do I lead a team? Yes. It's a team of 6 individuals that are broken between 4 different verticals. One being acquisition marketing, and we all love that, our ABM, our account-based marketing tactics. Client marketing, the way that we provide value adds to our clients to increase satisfaction and loyalty. Events and experiences, how do we create memorable experiences to bring prospects and clients and even the marketplace through the full funnel, if you will. And then rounding it out with communications. It's always important to make sure that we're being balanced in how we're communicating with the marketplace. We want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and using the right channels that are influenced by data and research.
Awesome. It seems like you're covering a lot of bases there. You've got that lead gen, you've got that kind of acquisition mentality, and also the retention, which you don't often see on the same team usually. So that's interesting to hear that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. Making marketing more objective. What? Let's take it back a step and let's think about how executives, how business leaders view marketing currently. What do you see as their take on marketing? Any challenges that arise? Any tensions that arise between marketing and the rest of the board? What's your view on that?
Sure. So it is such a great question. And I'll provide 2 data points and then I'll go into my personal feelings. So if you've seen the PricewaterhouseCooper or PwC market pulse surveys from earlier this year, one of the surveys that they released was focusing on chief marketing officers. And one of the stats that came out of it was 54% of those CMO respondents had felt that the business understands the value that marketing brings to the table. So there is significant upside to be able to articulate why marketing can be a revenue driver to the business. So I think that certainly that view has started to shift over recent years, but there is more wood to chop. Now, the other second data point that I think a little bit about is actually from a conversation that I had last night. We were at a dinner with a number of marketing leaders from the financial services industry. We were talking about AI, ad tech, and the evolving role of marketing. And unanimously, all 20 plus leaders that were there across multiple competitors to Morgan Stanley all agree that there is a shift in the way that marketing is being viewed. But there is a significant delta between where we believe we are versus where the business and executives actually are. So all of that aside, my personal view, right, is The pendulum is shifting. The way that we think a lot about marketing is how do we tell stories about the impact of marketing? One of the points that I always make to my team is it's great that we care about vanity metrics, but the business doesn't care about vanity metrics. What they want to know is that what we're doing is driving growth and being able to show that in a really tangible way.
Interesting. So it's bringing marketing into the wider business objectives and showing that it does have impact on revenue. It makes sense. Uh, so you've kind of hinted at some objectivity there, looking at data as a point of objectivity, as evidence that marketing is working, and you can't really deny that. It's not an opinion; it's fact. Is that true? Is that why you think marketing needs to be more objective so that you can prove its success?
I think it's marketing has to be objective for a number of reasons. Like, yes, it is to show the value of marketing and to prove its success, but also sometimes it's being able to get a seat at the table with the business and being viewed as a strategic partner. And I think that there's a number of lenses that you can take to objectivity. It could be what we were just talking about around the way that you showcase data and impact. It could also be the way that marketing or some marketing organizations, like the one that I end up leading, it could be that you use business intelligence programs to be able to capture unseen insights from the marketplace. Where selfishly, from a marketing perspective, that's why we run that program. Is we want to know what the marketplace is reacting to. What do they want to know? What are their challenges? What are their needs and pain points? How do they consume information? The flip side of that is there's so many business insights that we could share with business partners to provide more value there. So it's very much it very much goes to the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. Are you looking to shift the view of marketing to being a growth partner? And from a team professional perspective, are you looking to get a seat at the table? Those two things don't have to go hand in hand. I frankly believe that they do have to go hand in hand.
Hmm. Yeah, that second point is interesting about business insights and kind of market insights, I guess, because I think a lot of people think data gives you the answers, but sometimes you have to pull them out. And is that not, I don't mean to contradict you, but is that not subjective in itself, how to use that data and how to utilize that? Or is what you come out with, is that more objective because it relies on data?
Oh, Jody, I love this question. So there's so many paths we can go. So you're right. The data that we get could end up being viewed as subjective because we're reacting to a set, and then we're playing that out. The approach that we've taken in some cases is it is far easier to maintain an objective view by using a third party to share the insights and being able to provide those data points to the business. So I think that's a way that we've managed it so far. That's more so on, let's say, data and results that we would get from a client satisfaction survey versus my team reviewing our competitive intelligence platform, and carving out what we believe is important to know about competitors. So I think it's a little bit of that balance. But you raise a good point, and I'm thinking to the conversation we were having, before we jumped on the podcast around, you know, is objective the way to go? Short answer is yes. But as a marketer, it also relies on being subjective because we know what's happening with our clients, prospects in the marketplace. We're using those years of experience to influence where we go. So it's very much a combo, a hybrid. But to just be subjective won't get you to being a driver of growth. It has to be that balance.
Okay, that's great. That makes sense. And you almost use that objectivity and those objective metrics to prove that your subjective decisions are leading somewhere uh, successful and important. And yeah, you're getting where you need to be. So that makes sense. Thank you for
Amen.
clarifying that. It's a
Of
bit a
course.
balance of both. And yeah, it's an interesting nuance of how to use such an objective, seemingly objective thing like data, but giving it that subjective lens. So let's talk about more practically what you've done at Morgan Stanley. I want to know how you've turned the tide on marketing, how you've kind of won over business leaders over your time there, over your 10 years there, in fact. Is there any specific tactics or strategies or anything that you've used with your team to gain that?
Sure. No, and I appreciate the question. I will say, in looking back at the last 10 years, I feel like a dinosaur in the organization at this point. But it's been so great and the people are wonderful. So to answer your question around how, we've helped to shift the view amongst my peers as well as within the team is, it's really a few things and it touches on all the points we've been talking about. How can we showcase how can we showcase the tactics that we put out into the marketplace across acquisition and client marketing as examples, but in a really tangible way? If we're pushing out, let's say, short form videos, being able to say, hey, we're pushing out videos on LinkedIn is one thing, but being able to articulate the why we're doing that, the why we're featuring a thought leader, the reasons why we're focusing on personality and authenticity and covering off on key topics is really critical. That has allowed us to really form a strong partnership with the business because we're taking what marketing does, but we're making it so consumable by the business using the words they use and thinking the way that they think. So that's one thing. The second part is the way that we provide those unseen insights through our business intelligence programs and the fact that we cast a really wide net and come to the seat and come to the business table with intelligence that they haven't seen or heard before. And then I would say the third is, a lot of it is almost rebranding marketing in some ways. You can rebrand marketing to be a driver of growth. You just need to have the pieces in place to be able to do that. So I'd say those three things combined have really helped to shift the narrative with our business partners. Now, structurally, from a team perspective, the way that we're set up across verticals allows each lead to form really close partnerships with the business to understand their pain points and challenges, but also their sales or servicing pipeline and making sure that we're on the same journey with them. If marketing aligns its goals to business goals, then you're walking on the same path. Marketing historically, and from a non Morgan Stanley perspective, marketing has historically been a cost center. And I've seen that in other areas. That is just not the path forward, and that is not the approach that we take.
Interesting. You've touched on a lot of great points there, using the same language and jargon that they use, giving it to them, uh, telling a story like we do in a way that they will understand and they will grab onto. Is there a lot of collaboration between your, say, finance and marketing teams, or is it more just aligning on the same objectives?
Sure. I'd say it's both. There's a lot of great collaboration. The people are fantastic and everyone has the ability to speak to each other to gather learnings. So on the collaboration side, it's very much that, but it's also that alignment to objectives, right? If let's
Mhm.
say the business objectives are to win new plans or to drive cross sell as an example. Um, those become key reasons as to why marketing and why my team exists. It exists to help the business achieve those goals. So we ladder up to those directly.
Okay, great. So there's working together not only to create those objectives, but to execute strategies towards them as well. Like we said at the beginning, or you said at the beginning of the episode, there is has also been a wider shift in the sector towards seeing marketing as a growth driver and having that seat at the table, and not just being a cost center, like you said. So whilst you're doing all these amazing things at Morgan Stanley, it feels like there's more talk in amongst those other functions um, about marketing as a tool for growth. So yeah, it's a bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because of people like you have been trying and learning for the past 10 years, it's great. So we've talked a lot about tactics that you've used, and you've previously mentioned ROI and measurement a lot, uh, and the way that you talk to leadership about it. It's in their language, in their jargon. Does that differ quite a lot from how you measure marketing within your team. You mentioned that vanity metrics at the start of it as well. So you're still using vanity metrics and things like traffic and click through rates and lead generation and webinar downloads or whatever. Are you still using those to pivot and direct your strategy?
100%, yes. And as a marketer, those are always metrics that we're going to want to look at to influence what we do from a marketing perspective. So you're right, click-through rates, engagement rates, activity rates. It could be the more specifics around CPL, CPMs, and a lot more. All that influences what we do. But the story does differ between what we care about as marketers to influence what we do versus the way that we showcase results and impact to the business. You had mentioned, or at the start of the call, I think we spoke a little bit about marketing qualified leads or MQLs, or at least I was thinking that in my head as we were speaking. That is more marketing jargon. At the end of the day, we look at it as is there a prospect or is there a lead to be actioned on? You could break it into other terms. Are you attracting and acquiring to nurture and qualify to then get that individual or that corporate to a sales ready conversation? But at the end of the day, where we're starting to land is what is marketing influenced leads? How has marketing influenced that corporate to get to the point of being sales ready? And then knowing that we'll continue to do what marketing does in engaging that corporate behind the scenes, but it's really on the sales team to take it to the next level, to take that to close. And ultimately, that's what we look at as the next phase of marketing. It's we continue to focus on vanity metrics for ourselves, but we show impact and results by focusing on really tangible outcomes that the business can understand.
It sounds like you've got quite strong sales and marketing alignment there. Are you reporting under the same structure and reports?
You would almost think that we were, but that's a product of having that close partnership. So no, marketing and sales does sit in different organizations. But the reality is, marketing and sales are on the same spectrum, just different ends of it. We do the same exact things, just in different ways. But no, ultimately, it all comes down to the partnership that has been developed.
Great. So there is quite a clear handoff between marketing and sales.
Yes.
Awesome. That touches on something that I was thinking. We're constantly, as marketers, looking for that full funnel attribution, looking to track everything and anything, and to do lead scoring and to show our impact on the business so tangibly that we can sometimes forget that the B2B buyer journey is so complex, it's almost impossible. And you've brought up a quite prominent keyword that I've been thinking about, and a lot of people around me have been thinking about, and that's marketing influenced revenue rather than that hard ROI, because it's really the sales, isn't it? It's that handoff between marketing and sales that is the key. And yeah, so yeah, is that how you see it from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a journey that we're on. We very much have been on the traditional marketing journey of you have a prospect, you have an MQL, you have an SQL, and then obviously there's other acronyms on that journey. But where we're going to the point that you just made is all around marketing influenced leads, marketing influenced revenue. But we're still very much on that journey. It's an evolution, not just for ourselves, but I think also for business partners across the financial services industry. But it all goes back to that shift in marketing from being a traditional cost center to being that driver of growth. But there's still a lot of work to do.
Definitely. Would you ever try and convince your leadership that uh, with really kind of big metrics like you've invested more in marketing and now we're getting more revenue? Or do you think you would need something a little bit more detailed and specific than that?
You know, I'd say like at the basics and keeping with the making it easy for business partners to consume, I think that's the right story, right? marketing did X and produced Y in revenue, as long as you could prove out the Y. But the reality is, and being on the ground, it's harder than that. And you know, I, it comes down to the willingness of the business. Does the business understand marketing at a basic level? Do they understand the value of marketing? Do they understand the power of marketing? And it's almost growth, right? Foundationally, do you understand marketing? Do you understand the value and then the power? At the end of the day, everything we do in our lives is marketing. This conversation is marketing. We engage with our friends, it's technically marketing. But it's just different angles that we have to take to be able to show it in different ways. So that's my early thinking on that. But there's a lot to do around it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it would be as easy as that. I kind of
No,
said it just seeing a few, maybe thought in the future, but it comes back to that kind of wider sector change
yeah,
and especially B2B tech marketing and the rise of B2B tech marketing is even a thing. And even LinkedIn did a documentary about it,
mhm,
which was directed by a famous Netflix director and stuff, and it was saying we're in the age of B2B marketing, and it kind of feels like that with when you've got these huge B2B brands like all over the tube or the trains, like MailChimp, Salesforce, of course. They've got it, one of the biggest towers in Liverpool Street in London at the moment, and it just feels like marketing is more prevalent in business in general because of its success and its huge branding and its everywhere all the time mentality. And so, yeah, I think boards, they are shifting. You're right, they are,
yeah.
as well as all the great work that B2B marketers are doing in their organization for sure.
Definitely, definitely. Without marketing, you can't drive revenue. You can, right?
Yeah.
But you drive
Takes a long time.
exactly. There was another stat that I saw from LinkedIn at some point during the pandemic. It must have been 2022, if we even want to look back there. And it was talking about the power of brand. My personal feelings on brand aside, the stat was, and I believe it was LinkedIn and Edelman, they were talking about the trust that brands create and the fact that consistent brands that come through or go across all different touch points typically drive a 10+% higher revenue than companies that don't have consistency in brands. So I think that's just another powerful stat to say, okay, marketing will do marketing things, but there is that impact to the business at the end of the day.
Definitely. I'm actually, that's a great stat, and I'm actually surprised it's as low as 10%. I would have thought it would have been higher. But I guess that's changing because you think about like CRMs, for example. I heard on another podcast that I did that the CRM leaders have had market share for the past like 30 years, and it's just not changing, and it never will because their brands are just so strong. I pointed out Salesforce, of course. So I guess it depends on the category. It depends on the sector. It depends on if you're forging it, leading a new category, or trying to get into an existing one, or if you've got a strong brand already, like at Morgan Stanley, it's a very strong brand. Then yeah, I guess it depends on those nuances.
100%.
So um, we've talked about where marketing was. We've talked about where it is now. Um, how do you see marketing shifting in the future, and what do you think will be those trigger? What will trigger those shifts? Do you think? How do you think the relationship between business leadership and marketing will evolve?
Sure. So this is partially influenced by that PwC Market Pulse report on CMOs that I mentioned at the top of the call. Um, but it's also from what we can see on the ground, but also hear on the ground. So um, marketing and the business is converging. Obviously, the topic we're talking about is marketing being a driver of growth. I can imagine a day where marketing is part of the business, and in some companies it is. But I see that shift happening, at least organizationally. I see the advent of AI being transformational from a marketing perspective, not just in the efficiencies that we gather by having access to an incredibly powerful tool, but also being able to tell connected stories that show outcomes. And what do I mean by connected stories is being able to pull together all those data points across disparate systems. And we know almost every company uses 10 plus systems to track some sort of data, if not more. But imagine pulling that together seamlessly to then be able to tell a story to the business and say, hey, here's what we're seeing. And I'd say the third is how do you use technology, ad tech, to target specific audiences, to be hyper segmented, to display messages not just at a function level of, let's say, HR finance or legal as an example, but being able to click into those individuals that are in that function at a more granular level. That's what I see is the future of marketing. We're on that journey already. AI and ad tech and just technology more broadly is going to pivot us there even faster.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting perspective on the use of AI in marketing. It's one of our favorite topics in Finite, how to use AI. We usually talk about it to make us more efficient, but yeah, to pull all of that data together and to be able to allow it to tell stories with that data will be so important. And it ties back to what we were talking about this entire episode about making marketing more objective and really selling it to the wider business. If you had that objectivity of, I mean, AI isn't really objective, but seeming objectivity of AI to back you up and to put a stamp of approval on your data and your stories, then that can only help.
Sure. I am right. We talked a little bit about time efficiencies that you get from using the platform to enhance content. There's also cost efficiencies. Imagine you're doing non-branded paid search as a kind of as a tactical example, and you're using human generated versus AI generated content, and you test both in the market. If one overperforms the other, you're you're going to index or the system, algorithm, all the words to get there. You'll use the algorithm to optimize to the copy that is overperforming. That to me is cost efficiencies or even purchasing power, if you will. And that I think is a big benefit coming out of AI as well. You'll optimize to what's performing and leading to higher results. So it's that correlation that I think is also important.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen so many studies where consumers prefer AI content, which as a writer, it kind of like kills me, but I'm like, okay, okay, I'll allow it.
Jody, I think we have another
Definitely.
topic.
Yeah. We'll have to come back on the show sometime and talk about it.
Definitely.
Um, but for now, thank you so much for coming on, Steve. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. Really appreciate you having me and really hope that the finite community enjoys this and certainly happy to have a conversation with anyone who would like to reach out. So thank you.